Hi everyone, Gamo here from Resolute Foundation, and today is a special, special day. Today we are at the C.A.R.E Center. C.A.R.E stands for Center for Autism Research and Education, and I have the great privilege of being able to sit down with one of the staff members to find out more about who C.A.R.E is and the role that they play in education. And so today I'm sitting with our dear friend Lindi. Lindi, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello.
Yeah, great, great. So,
Thank
just for the
you.
folks at home, Lindy, could you just jump into what you do here at CARE and just a little bit about who you are?
Okay, like you mentioned, I'm Lindi. I do OT here, which is like occupational therapy. So I treat kids with occupational therapy services, but also I head up the senior phase of
Okay.
care, which is our learners from 12 years up to 21 years of age. But my caseload is from the little ones to the older ones, even though my responsibility is mainly heading up the senior phase. So yeah, that's what I do.
Okay. One of the interesting things that we got to see when we first passed by was, especially in the high school for CARE, uh, the classroom environment looking like home environment or work type of environments. Could you just
Mm.
jump into why it's so important for that setup to be there for the students?
Yeah, I think it's because we're trying to assimilate skills. With autism, the part where you deal with the application of skills is quite important, right? I can teach something in a classroom setting, but if it applies to a bedroom setting, that transferal of the skills can become a bit of a challenge. So we believe in teaching things in the most naturalistic environment, right? We have some of our learners that go and do job shadowing skills at another company and they have their difficulties there.
It's
So
brilliant.
we assimilate that here at the school to give them the same support, and we find that the improvement is quite big. It also helps us to understand what they actually struggle with, because I can have a sequence on my desk, but if they have to apply the actual skills in real life, I don't know. Is it a motor issue? Is it a sequencing issue? Is it a sensory issue? But
Yeah.
if I'm doing it within that environment that is quite specific, I can then see what the challenges are and address them specifically. That
Yeah.
way, there's progress.
Yeah, it was great to see when we were doing the walkthrough, the classroom is so there's one that looks like a kitchen, there's one that looks like a bedroom, there's one that's a bathroom. Um, and so the practical skills is something that really caught our eye in terms of what you're doing here, will it be applied in the real world? And I feel that there's a huge overlap when it comes to that and coding and robotics as well. You spoke about the
Mm.
jab shadowing and whatnot. And so, what do you envision the kids being able to pick up from implementing coding and robotics at your school, given that it's also a very hands-on type of subject?
Mm. I think I'm quite interested in the whole program because there's kids that have skills that we don't really know of because we focus a lot on therapy-based skills and academic skills. So you guys are coming up with something that is of high interest when it comes to autism because it's screen time, number one, on a computer. You deal with some things that look like Lego, you integrate the two and you do something that's quite structured and repetitive, and that's what feeds the autism. They love the repetition, they love the structure. So a lot of them will get to learn a skill that is fun, but also work based. So as they transfer that into something that they can do for work purposes, or if they want to further these studies into something else, it will highly benefit them because to them it's fun. It's something that they enjoy doing, working on a computer, dealing with the codes, dealing with the specific sequence, and they would highly benefit from that. So some of the kids that we might find are not really integrating well in a classroom, I get the feeling that we'll find them thriving in a course like this, and then they're
Okay.
given fair opportunity
Mhm.
to be streamed into what they're passionate about.
Yeah. So every time I walk into here, the teachers are running all over the place. Uh, and there's a huge educator
Mm,
aspect where we don't necessarily understand, just as common folk who aren't in the classroom on an everyday basis, what it
mm,
takes to be able to lead students um, in this type of facility. Could you
mm.
just jump into the mindset of what how a teacher needs to just mentally prepare, because it's not quote unquote your typical type school, you're dealing with different students. What's that preparation look like, and how do you guys
Mm.
support each other as educators?
So the first thing that will pop in your mind as a teacher or a therapist in an environment like this is safety. You want to make sure that there aren't anything or stuff on the playground, in the classroom, that are potentially going to hurt the child or your student that you're working with. So, and we know that parents, because they have these kids that are not going to get back home and say, Mommy, today I did this and this and that, you want to make sure that they are protected as much as possible. So that is always number one priority for us. Even because we've been working together for a while, we support each other to say, hey, do you remember to pack your scissors maybe in a specific place, put your pencils in a specific place, set up your class this way?
Yeah.
Because number one, we're thinking of injuries, how they might hurt each other, bite each other, and all of that. And another thing that you want to make sure is that the kids feel safe here, that they can find something they like. So we use something that we call like a floor time approach. It happens in the classroom, in therapy. So basically it's about treating using what the child likes. You follow the child's lead into what they want to do. So that helps us to get to know them better. So you'll find therapists and teachers that maybe use their own phones, their personal stuff, just because they try to get to know a child better, So you're more of like a parent at that point, because you're trying to keep the child at ease, find out what they like, and make sure that they are also having as much fun at the school.
Yeah.
Hence, we don't have issues with eating with our kids, doing some fun activities with our kids. We had a Valentine's event with our kids. So we do
How
a
did that
lot of
work?
things.
What
It was
happened there?
quite cute, even though they don't really understand it. But we're like, okay, we've dressed up. You guys have dressed up. We're taking pictures. We're doing Valentine's collages. We integrate them in a lot of the things that we do, because we want them to experience as much normal as possible, but we want to keep them safe as well. Understand that they have their own challenges, they have their own specifics that we have to look into, and cater to that. Everything is quite child-centered here. I think that's the best way to wrap it up.
One of the greatest things that I saw when we first visited was the boxing bags outside. So for anyone who might not know, right now we're in the primary school facility, but when we walked in here, there's boxing bags and there's kids doing boxing.
Yes.
So can you just jump a little bit into that? Like, why is there boxing? How does it help the kids? Because that was a nice activity that I saw them really just enjoying as
Exactly.
well.
Yeah. So they do, there's a coach that his name's Coach Luke. He has developed this boxing program for teenagers. And we thought, let's bring it into our school to see if the kids can use it, not only for frustration purposes, but if they can follow instruction, participate on a specific sport, and especially our teen boys, now they become hormonal and stuff, like, can they maybe take part in this? And we actually discovered that they like it. There's a boy, like a young man now, he left the school. He just liked packing everything, like putting the boxing stuff on, taking them off, as heavy as they are. But that's what he enjoyed. And he found so much pleasure from doing it, and there's others that actually enjoy the boxing itself. We have a speech therapist that also helps them. She takes part in that to bring the language aspect, following of instructions. There's music there. So, it's like sensory overload, but it's well controlled. And it's quite nice to see how they actually enjoy that. And funny enough, they don't use the techniques on us. So they wouldn't
That's good.
box us. So they wouldn't do that to us. So yeah, it's quite positive so far. It's quite good, especially for our bigger boys.
I think maybe just in parting, maybe you could just share a little bit of knowledge for people who don't engage with autistic learners on a day-to-day basis. If we're coming across autistic learners, what is there to be mindful of so that they don't feel excluded or looked down upon? What are some of the things that people could just keep in mind heading into the future?
One thing that I'm quite strict on is that you shouldn't treat them like they're different. Communicate with them the way you would communicate to any other child. Yes, with them, you'd obviously need the repetition, they might need some visual support, and that's okay. But if I come across an autistic child, I'll greet them like, good morning, how are you? Sometimes if I say, good morning, Mr. Resolute, for instance, they'll say, good morning, Mr. Resolute. They repeat whatever it is that you say. But I understand that, okay, they're giving a greeting and that's their way of responding to me. Sometimes we correct it. Sometimes we laugh about it, like how I would laugh with any other child. But if you start treating them differently, the older they get, I feel they can pick it up. They can see that, okay, now I'm not the same as the other kids. And that's when you see some of them struggle with anxiety and how they would be pulled out of the class to come to therapy. There's anxiety there because they're like, am I going to perform the way you want me to perform?
Yeah.
Am I going to do the things that you want? Even with you guys introducing your whole program, it's going to be quite challenging because they're going to think, can I do this? It's something that,
Yeah.
am I going to fail somebody? Am I going to pull out some behaviors? And it's a lot of things that they deal with internally. And we think they don't understand, but they have such good understanding of language, of some of the things that um, non-spoken language,
Yeah.
they can sort of like see and pick that up.
Mm.
I mean, you find those that don't really pay attention to that, they don't really care, but then others are quite alert to how you would treat them, and they might not react here at school. In most cases, you hear parents say, what happened at school? My child's acting out, or he's crying, or he locked himself in his room. So that shows that whatever happens at the school is quite significant, because
Yeah.
then it shows up somewhere else, or as they're traveling home, there's behaviors that parents experience, our bus drivers experience those behaviors, and they'll also come back to us to say, okay, how are you then treating these kids? So my advice to anybody is that try to treat them like any other child.
Yeah.
If you feel that maybe they don't understand what you're saying, you can repeat it for them, but they're not deaf. You don't have to be like loud, or you don't have to ignore them. You can make a comment. They're not going to respond, but they understand what you're saying. And sometimes, if you're not used to it, it's like you're not okay in the head because you're constantly talking to yourself. But I do that with majority of my kids. I just keep the communication going, and I make comments. They might not respond, but I'm like, we together, you can hear what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Let's just keep it going.
Wow. Great. Lindi, we're super excited to launch the program here,
I'm
introducing
excited as
coding and
well.
robotics. And thank you for taking the time, just sitting down with us, taking us a little bit into your day to day. And yeah, we will see you in the future, and come
Yay.
back and see how the kids are doing with our program.
Yeah.
And we look forward to just an incredible relationship with C.A.R.E. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm also excited.